Okay, what's your name and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Reid Carlberg. I work for Salesforce.com. I'm a developer evangelist, and I lead the team of field evangelists that are out there helping people understand the Salesforce platform.
Okay, now I think everybody knows what Salesforce.com does, but in the Internet of Things, what's kind of the direction? What's the strategy?
Yeah, so a lot of people really think about Salesforce as Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, which are great products, and people are using them all over the world. I actually work on the platform side of the house. We have a fantastic platform where people can build all kinds of business apps. And when we start talking about Salesforce and the Internet of Things, we're actually engaged in kind of all three of those areas in very interesting ways. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're helping people tie devices into Service Cloud so that it's very quick for somebody to get help on a product that they've purchased. On the platform side of the house, we have all kinds of direct integration with devices, which are someplace out in the field, and Salesforce. And then on the sales side of the house, we have something similar, which helps AEs know when it's time to contact customers to get refills on consumables, that kind of thing.
Business apps. And now, have you been, you also mentioned the platform of connecting devices. So what historically, what have you connected in the past before they started being called IoT?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So Salesforce has been talking about connected devices for quite a few years. We have some interesting stuff which you can find on YouTube that is all about the Toyota Friend, which is a connected car. We've talked about connecting jet engines. We have have some great examples that we have a connected freezer used by one of our customers called New England Biolabs. So we've got all kinds of stuff that are connected into Salesforce, and it's been happening, honestly, as long as I've been on the platform. I think the first connected device that I actually heard of as talking directly to Salesforce was about 6 years ago, and it was a washing machine. The way that Salesforce works from a platform standpoint is we have an extensive API that people can use. So it's always been the case that if you wanted to reach out from some device over the internet to Salesforce, it was easy to do.
Really? So device to cloud communication.
Yep.
You're connecting.
Exactly.
And have you expanded it for the Internet of Things? I mean, how are you connect? Are you actually developing APIs to connect up to all these different things? Are you connecting to different clouds? How are you actually connecting to objects?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've actually been expanding the Salesforce API set all across the board. Last year at Dreamforce, we released a great new product called Salesforce One. Salesforce One has a ton of new APIs that go on behind it, and then there's also a mobile app that goes with that too. On the device front, some people are choosing to interact with Salesforce via regular Force.com platform APIs. And then some people are choosing to create their own APIs via our Heroku platform. So really there's no one right way to do it. It's whatever way is going to make our customers most successful.
So now how does Salesforce differentiate themselves from all the other platforms that are out there?
It's a good question. I mean, we differentiate on a lot of things. Our number one goal is to make our customers successful. And so when you think about how customers engage with Salesforce, that's our primary thing that we lead them to, right? So that's all across the board. When it comes into the IoT, it's really no exception. Our goal is to help customers figure out what that distilled actionable insight from their connected devices really is and how that's going to improve their business. That's our key goal. That's really how we work with people, and it's true across all of our products.
So if I think about it now, it's obviously a business apps.
Yep.
Apps. So are most of the IoT, first of all, do you have a lot of IoT actually development happening on the Salesforce platform today?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on what you're talking about, what the IoT section is. We have a lot of customers that are doing very different things. So Philips, for example, has a connected MRI machine that's talking to Salesforce. That's definitely Internet of Things. New England Biolabs has connected freezers that they have out at their customer sites that are talking directly to Salesforce. That's Internet of Things. We have a huge partner ecosystem which is doing some of that deep connectivity, out to the smallest sensors in the field, all the way back up to the distilled insight that sits next to a customer or next to a service record someplace within Salesforce.com, and that's Internet of Things. So yeah, there's a lot of work that's going on right now. It's a very common pattern to see that people will be doing a prototype, talking directly to Salesforce. They'll be doing a production implementation in conjunction with a partner that's talking maybe to Heroku for the detailed level of data, and then it gets that distilled information that comes up into Salesforce.
Okay.
So it's definitely happening out there.
Okay. And are you, if I think about the spectrum of IoT, starting from personal wearables, to maybe smart homes, smart cities, to more the industrial internet. Where is there a sweet spot for Salesforce in there?
So it really kind of depends on what our customers are using us for and what their application is. I will say I've seen solutions kind of across the board. We actually just released a fantastic open source collection of developer packs called Salesforce Wear. And these are designed to help our developers get up and running with modern wearables. So things like Google Glass, the Samsung Gear, or like the new Android watch that's coming out, or even the Mio Band or the NIMI identity device. And so we've created these tools which let developers get up and running with those within the Salesforce context. Our goal is to help them re-envision and understand what enterprise wearables really mean.
What does their enterprise wearables mean?
You know what? I don't think we know yet. I think what's going to happen is people are going to start using these devices in very interesting ways. Then in 2 or 3 years, we're going to see something which really pops up, and our heads just all go, yes, that's exactly what we mean. I think the identity that NIMI is talking about, where they can really tie a person's identity to a device that they're carrying around, I think that's really interesting. I think the hands-free capable that the Mio armband puts together, I think that's tremendously interesting. I think we're going to see lots of great stuff coming out of that sector.
But again, you said for the enterprise, which makes sense.
Yep.
Right? And now I'm thinking of a scenario in business where IoT, of course, there's the top line where you invent new things, but there's also the bottom line where you become more efficient. Does this make sense, tying it into the Salesforce? I'm wondering, what are the knobs and controls that can be used there?
Yeah, so I actually think there's some really interesting things to go on there. I first and foremost think that what companies should be doing is they should be thinking about solving their customers' problems better, right? And so essentially that means they're delivering more value to their customers. Because really, when you think about it, there's no upper boundary to value that you can provide, right? So it's kind of green field. You can keep going and provide more and more value to your customers. So I think that should be their number one goal. Cost control, reducing the cost that it takes to service somebody, I think that's definitely there. In my mind, it's, I'm not going to say it's a distant number two, but it's number two, right? Because if you can provide more value, that's the first thing that you should go for. And then if you can control costs along the way, that's great too.
Now, what if you're a subscriber yourself, you're a business, and you're implementing IoT within your own business?
Yeah.
How would that work in your scenario?
You mean in conjunction with Salesforce.com? Or?
Yeah.
So I think really it boils down to what your use case is. I'm a big believer that use case should drive everything. I'm a developer at heart. I'm a developer evangelist, and so I spend a lot of time talking about code. And code is really important. But what I think really drives success in the Internet of Things is the use case that you choose, right? And so if you choose a critical use case, something which is going to help your customers really achieve their goals, that's the number one thing. And so that's the first thing that I always advise everybody. What does it look like then once you've chosen that to get started with Salesforce? Depends on what that use case is. Depends on where you want that final data to lie. Chances are, if you're in a business context, you're going to want to have that information someplace next to the customer, so a service rep or an account executive or somebody who's helping that customer achieve their goals can act on it.
Okay. Now, the vertical markets then?
Yeah.
Are there any particular ones? Or, who's the customer?
Yeah.
Who's the customer you're going after for the IoT, and what vertical markets are they playing in?
So it's funny because Salesforce works across the board with companies in all different industries and companies of all sizes, right? We work with a lot of SMBs, we work with a lot of big enterprise, we work with a lot of nonprofits. And so our goal is really to help everybody be successful, but then when it comes to IoT and you ask about the verticals, we are doing a lot of stuff with people in, for example, the healthcare realm, right? Philips is a big customer, I mentioned them before. We're doing a lot of stuff in transportation. Right? We're doing a lot of stuff in government. We're kind of going across the board, so I can't really just pick one and say, oh, this is our target, because that's not really how we work.
Okay. Now, but let's use the example of Philips, because that's
sure.
intriguing. And I used to be a developer as well, and I actually developed three-dimensional software for MRIs.
Okay,
so
great.
I'm kind of into it. Why would Philips want to connect to, and why do they connect to Salesforce.com as opposed to some other platform?
Yeah, so the big reason that they would connect to Salesforce.com is that honestly, we've got these apps that are already throughout their business, right? So they have salespeople and service people that are, day in and day out using Sales Cloud and they're using Service Cloud, and they want to make sure that they're tying their devices into those existing processes. So I always look at, I said before that I think use case is the most important thing that people should consider. The number two thing that I think people should be looking at is user experience. The biggest mistake that people make is trying to come up with a brand new user experience to go up with a new capability. If you can take that new capability and integrate it into your existing experience, you're more likely to be successful. So let's take an example of some company that has Salesforce deployed broadly, which a lot of companies do, and then they've got the Salesforce One mobile app, and customers are using that on a regular basis. It's very easy for you then to connect a bunch of devices in, get that distilled insight next to the customer, next to the service record, and then suddenly people have that on their mobile device, right? So it's a very straightforward, very easy way to get adoption on these new capabilities, right? Because it's literally coming right in with their existing workflows.
And so in the case of Philips, is it one of maintenance? Is it one of just tying it into the service contract? I'm just wondering how to connect the dots there.
Yeah, so we actually have a use case about this that people can go and they can look out on YouTube and they can see it up more on the Salesforce.com site. But fundamentally, it boils down to service, right? And how do you help the customer make sure that they're getting the most out of that capital equipment?
Right. All right. Well, what type of advice would you have for, I guess, a new developer, a new IoT developer that's approaching this and going to develop a service? What would be your advice?
Get started, okay?
Yeah.
Don't get lost in the code. Right now, quite honestly, there's still a lot of stuff which is in flux, right? So people are talking about different platforms that it might be. People are talking about the different protocols that you might use from the sensor, which is really remote in the field, to some sort of intermediate area. And those are interesting and those are important. But most enterprise developers are going to be facing instead questions of how do you deliver something that is that actionable insight out of what we've got out there in the field. Most of the time, developers are going to be partnering with somebody to actually execute that very domain-specific technical integration that's someplace remote, and that's great. So what a developer should really focus on is how can they take that information, make it actionable, and deliver value to the business.
Okay, and making it actionable, usually there's some big data involved,
Yeah.
analytics involved. Does Salesforce do any of that, or you just interface with that?
Well, so what we recommend, honestly, right now is that you integrate with some of our partners. We have some great partners that are doing fantastic work, companies like Xively, Exida, Ethereos, Telemetry. They're all out there providing these end-to-end solutions where it starts off as some remote device and then it ends up as actionable in Salesforce. There are going to be all kinds of kind of curves that people have to navigate while they're going through a solution creation, but it's doable, right? So if you're a developer getting started, I would jump in, have confidence that you're going to be able to get there, and don't hesitate to play around with some of the fun use cases which are out there, even if they're not your business use case.
Yeah. All right. Well, so how will these developers find out more about Salesforce.com for IoT?
Sure. So the easiest thing that they can do is they can go to developer.salesforce.com. We have a ton of information there that helps them get started. We actually have a Udacity course as well. So if you search Salesforce and Udacity, you're going to find a fun course that takes you from really not knowing anything about Salesforce to being somebody who can develop on the Salesforce platform. And then getting into the IoT, you can just check out our blogs. We have lots of examples. I just published one called Internet of Things in 10 Minutes, which is all about connecting device from a sensor in your phone through one of our partners' interfaces into Salesforce.com directly.
10 minutes?
Yeah, it's actually super fast. It's surprising how fast it is.
Nice. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.